Today is April 11th, Saturday night. I just got off of my third 12-hour, 13-hour shift in a row at the hospital. And today was probably one of the hardest days I've had this far into the pandemic. I went to work today with a positive attitude. I try to start every day off with a positive attitude because I know that I'm walking into a war zone every day. I had been in this ICU for the past 3 days, so I knew all my patients. I had hopes, I had plans, I had, goals for some of these people today that I was hoping to accomplish. But this COVID-19 decided to really throw me for a loop today and rear its ugly freaking head. None of the patients I wanted to take off ventilators were doing well enough to come off. Some of the patients I saw a little glimmer of hope in yesterday worsened in 12 hours, and it was a pretty crappy day in terms of hoping to do some sort of good. And what's bothering me the most today is a story of a patient that was passing away. She's an elderly female with some medical problems that the family chose to intubate or put on a ventilator, breathing machine, to give her a chance. Let's give her an opportunity to get better, give her a couple of days, see how she does. She was showing some promise yesterday, but this morning was remarkably worse, and kidneys were failing and needing to go on dialysis. And I spoke to the niece, who was her surrogate, and she immediately told me that she knew that her aunt would never want anything like that, and asked me what her next steps would be. And I knew in my head what the next steps were. Someone of her age, was likely not to survive this in a way that she would have any meaningful life if she survived, without dialysis, without a long-term ventilator. So I told her options in terms of dialysis versus considering to make her comfortable if she knew she didn't want these things. And she knew immediately that her aunt would not want any heroic measures. So we proceeded down the route of comfort care. And in normal circumstances, like non-COVID-19 circumstances, this conversation would never happen over the phone. It would happen in the ICU, and it would be with a family member that I had been building a relationship with for days on end, because they're coming into the ICU, they're visiting their loved one, and I meet them and I speak to them and I know them by name and by face. Not some cold conversation, over the phone. And I immediately apologized to her that I'm so sorry that I have to be having this conversation with you over the phone. I'm so sorry that we're in this situation. And there's no visitors allowed in the hospital because of the virus and the exposure that people would face if they came. But during end of life, if someone is close to passing, we do make exceptions that visitors can come to say goodbye to their loved one, but we usually limit it to one person. So I offered that to this woman to come say goodbye to her aunt before we made her comfortable. And immediately she said no, and she started crying, and she said that she was immune compromised and couldn't take the risk of exposing herself. And then I remembered that someone had donated iPhones to us that we could use to FaceTime the patients for their family members. But in the back of my mind, I was like, I don't know, does she really want to see her loved one on FaceTime, lying in a bed, not in her best state, and remember her loved one like that? But I felt a duty that I needed to at least let her know this was an option. It wasn't for me to decide if she wanted to see her loved one that way. And she kind of hesitated also and said, I don't know if I need to do the FaceTime, but could I at least talk to her? I said, absolutely. I will go in the room for you and put the phone on speakerphone so you can talk to her. And she said, you sure? Do you really think she's going to hear me? And I've been asked this question numerous times, taking care of patients in the ICU like this, and no one knows the answer. We don't know what people who are dying can hear, can see, can feel. We don't know. There's no way for anyone to know what a dying person experiences. So I said to her, as far as I'm concerned, her ears still work, because I'm sure that they do. So I suited up, I got my gear on, and went into the room to put the phone on speakerphone so she could hear her. Mind you, this elderly woman is laying in bed, attached to a ventilator, on some medications to keep her comfortable. Put the phone on speakerphone, and the woman tells to me, all right, Jenny, I just want to give you a heads up. I'm going to talk to her for a few minutes, and then I want to say a couple of prayers. Is it okay with you if I say a few prayers with her? I'm like, of course, it's okay. And I just remembered sitting there today and being in this moment, this intimate moment with a loved one and their dying family member. And this is a moment that I have no business being there. I have no business being in the middle of these two people at such a precious, intimate, unfortunate moment. And I had to sit there and listen to this woman telling her aunt how much she loved her, how much she cared for her, how thankful she was for everything that she taught her, listing the people that she spoke to that were saying goodbye to her, her recounting some stories that the two of them had shared. And I'm just sitting there in this stupid gown and gloves and mask and sitting there and trying to make sense of how this is all happening. I was holding the patient's hand, looking at her, hoping that I would see something from the patient that would show me that she could understand, she could hear, that she was responding to the other person on the end of the phone. And it's a moment in my career that I know I will never ever forget. It's something that I should never have had to be a part of. But at the same instance, I do find comfort that I was able to provide that for her. I was able to do the right thing, or the best that I could do with my resources. And I just sat there and let her talk, and she said a few prayers. I held the lady's hand the entire time. And I promised her that she would not be alone when she passed, and that we would take good care of her until her last moments. And I hope that she found comfort in that, and I hope that she found some peace in being able to say goodbye. But ultimately, I just can't help but feel how it's just not how it's supposed to be. It's not. And this is just one story of several that I've already experienced in this battle. And that's just my story. That's not the rest of my nurses, the rest of my PAs, my doctors, my NPs, everyone in the hospital. That's just me. And there's a ton of other hospitals out there and a ton of other healthcare workers out there that are going through the same exact thing. And it's innumerable, and it's unfair, and it's heartbreaking. Um, and I don't know if there's any way we can ever comfort these family members, that any way that we can ever assure them that we're doing everything we can for their loved one, to assure them that their loved one is comfortable, um, that their loved one is being cared for and they're not alone. I can tell you that I myself have been in the rooms with these patients holding their hands, and I have had numerous nurses' aides, other healthcare workers in those rooms with these patients, making sure that they're not alone. It's the absolute least we can do in these situations. And if not for them, but also for us. And I hope that in some way we're making a difference in that way. I wish it didn't have to be this way. I wish I didn't have to have someone die alone. I wish I didn't have to have these people die at all. It's the unthinkable. The unthinkable, the unimaginable, nothing anyone has ever prepared me for, has ever taught me to deal with. And I hope I never have to deal with this again. I hope I never have to face this again. I don't know how I am going to continue to face this. I tell myself that every day. How am I going to possibly take more? How can I watch another person die? How can I watch another person pass away on their own with no one there that loves them? How much more can we take? And it's not just the patients and the family members we're supporting, but it's also each other. We're people too. We have fears, we have concerns, we have anxiety, we have stress, we have worry. And the only ones that can understand this are each other. It's everyone on my team. They're the only ones that can understand what I'm going through, that can feel what we feel, who see what we see, who know exactly what each other is feeling. And, we are all supporting each other while trying to keep ourselves up too. But we're all doing a good job of that, and I'm thankful for my coworkers that are right there behind me to hold my hand after I leave the patient's room, holding that patient's hand. And I'm thankful for the amazing people that I work with that are supporting me, and I hope that I'm supporting them too.